Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission's virtual meeting focusing on community relations, specifically community and race relations, and how our state and communities can enhance business growth through honest dialogue. During this virtual event, please keep your computers and phones muted and keep your cameras off. Questions that you have during today's presentation may be entered into the chat box. We will address questions later in today's presentation, and thank you all for your cooperation. We appreciate it. My name is Dan Kuhn, and I serve as Deputy Commissioner of Consultative Services at the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission, and I'll be moderating today's virtual event. The South Carolina General Assembly and Governor John C. West and subsequent governors and assemblies have given the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission, throughout its nearly 50-year history, the mission to eliminate and to prevent unlawful discrimination and to promote goodwill and the betterment of all South Carolinians. While a large task for any state agency to perform, it is a necessary task and one that this agency is always striving to achieve. Our current Chief Executive Officer is Janie Davis. Commissioner Davis has been agency head since January of 2020, just ahead of the COVID-19 pandemic that provided so many challenges to all South Carolinians. She has led our agency through these very difficult times. Ms. Davis's vision for the agency was to return to the roots of its creation, creating and maintaining better race relations. How prophetic in the light of the 2020 murder of George Floyd and subsequent calls for social justice, equity, and inclusion for all Americans, particularly related to the plight of African Americans. Before hearing from Ms. Davis, I would like to briefly tell you a little bit about her professional experience. Commissioner Davis is from the PD area of the state, received her bachelor's degree in social science with an emphasis in political science pre-law from South Carolina State University. She also holds a master's degree in public administration from the University of South Carolina. She started her career with State Personnel Division in classification and compensation, accepted a promotion as Division Director of Technical Services at the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission, where she was employed for 14 years. She accepted then a promotion as Agency Head of the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs, where she was employed for 15 years. After a 9-year retirement, Commissioner Davis returned to the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission in January of 2020 to lead our agency. And it is with great pleasure that I now introduce to you Ms. Janie Davis, Commissioner of the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning and welcome to this meeting. I am Janie Davis, the current Commissioner and Chief Administrative Officer for the Commission. It's a joy to see so many on the call today, where one of my goals is to share our vision for the Commission's Community Relations Program. As our statutory mandates state, we want to help all of us as leaders and citizens of our state to promote goodwill and the betterment of human affairs. So thank you for affording us this opportunity to meet you and hear from you today as we renew old acquaintances and establish new ones. As Dan indicated, next year the Commission will celebrate its 50th anniversary. Over these past 49 years, South Carolina, because of tremendous economic growth and goodwill, has made strides in race relations and community harmony, despite all the noise we currently hear to the contrary. People have learned to live and work together over the decades, but much work remains to be done to keep South Carolina focused on what makes us great and competitive, and a state where companies and businesses want to locate, a place where tourists feel safe and welcome, and a place where bright and creative minds want to live, work, and enjoy the beauty of our natural resources, diverse communities, and people. For South Carolina to continue to grow and prosper, we must address community and race relations in an appropriate manner that brings people together rather than tear people apart. Let me remind you, the work of the Commission in its infancy was about bringing people together and building harmonious community and race relations. Today, the Commission is most recognized for its enforcement work in partnership with the EEOC and HUD, investigating allegations of unlawful discrimination. And we are pleased to be recognized in this manner. However, given the undercurrent and the recent racial unrest around the world and our nation and state, the Commission must ensure that our entire mission to prevent and eliminate unlawful discrimination is fully carried out, by also focusing more on prevention by working with all of you to address problems in our communities before they spiral out of control. That is the purpose of our talk today. We do not want our progress regarding community and race relations to erode. Hate crimes are on the rise, and the political divide that has the country moving toward community unrest requires the state to be strategic and preemptive in its efforts to maintain and promote goodwill and the betterment of human affairs, therefore improving the quality of life for all South Carolinians. Now, when you read the flyer and saw the subject matter to be discussed today, you may have wondered about the relationship between business growth, community, and race relations. When we heard about a company moving its business operations to the state, South Carolina is praised for its interstate highway system, deep water ports, airports, railways, energy, communication networks, tax incentive structure, our great workforce, etc. I don't think I have ever heard anyone say we have great race relations. But make no mistake, our perceived friendliness, our ability to get along, how the state and the families directly interact or were impacted by the Charleston 9 killings, responded, and how this state handled other racially charged incidences that played out on local, state, and national media are found among companies' current events. We are viewed, quietly watched, and considered by company executives responsible for studying the quality of life and community measures. Coming south means coming to a state that values all people, and the recent shortage of workers since COVID-19 highlights this quality of life measure like never before. We need all our workforce available to work for businesses to thrive. We cannot afford to be divided across the state, and we must make sure this fact is effectively communicated. Companies calling South Carolina home and others relocating here are demanding and requiring a high quality of life, which includes great communities where community and racial harmony are valued. Earlier this summer, CNBC produced its annual competitiveness rankings, which scores the 50 states on various metrics such as best educated workforce, cost of doing business, infrastructure, workforce, economy, business friendliness, access to capital, technology and innovation, cost of living, quality of life, and health. But this year, they included a new metrics. Can you guess what it is? Inclusion. The CNBC rankings on America's Top States for Business 2021 was released as companies are increasingly vocal in their demands for inclusiveness in the states where they do business. Equity and inclusion being included in the CNBC 2021 competitiveness study this time around lets us know that we must be strategic and mindful to ensure we are working together across racial lines and doing everything we can to have conversations about community relations and race. If we don't, we risk those conversations happening in the workplace or in the streets, rather than in a way that brings people together for the good of the entire community. For those people who fail to understand the relationship between job growth and the importance of racial harmony, we must do all we can to inform them. Their jobs and future employment for their family members and community depend on all of us communicating this correctly and effectively. Again, thank you for joining us today as we enhance our work with you to improve your communities through honest dialogue about race relations and its importance to business growth and economic development. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Elizabeth Kovacs, Deputy Director of Workforce Development for the South Carolina Department of Commerce. Ms. Kovacs is an experienced professional in economic, workforce, and community development. With an extensive background in advancing South Carolina's economy and workforce, Ms. Kovacs has been with State Commerce for more than 18 years. Prior to her time at Commerce, Elizabeth spent time at the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce and the South Carolina Office of the Governor, as well as a 2-year stint in the private sector. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of South Carolina and is a certified economic development finance professional. There is more that I could say, but I will stop there. We are honored to have Elizabeth Kovacs join us today to further share with all of us what companies doing business and those interested in moving to South Carolina want and expect when they arrive in our communities. At this time, I give you Elizabeth Kovacs.
And thank you for the opportunity to be with you all today. As previously mentioned, the outside world truly does have its eyes set on South Carolina. And by this, I mean that we are a premium brand state, and companies from around the globe are constantly watching us. So having the workforce that's diverse and equitable is something very important for the companies who are locating here. Are y'all still getting feedback? Okay. Well, keep going. And so if somebody wants to raise their hand that this is annoying, I can hear some feedback. So again, my apologies.
There's a little feedback, but go ahead.
You're good, Elizabeth.
Okay. Truly, community affairs and current events can play a major factor in a company's decision to locate in a new state or community. I can confirm that a state's workforce is indeed a major determining factor when companies are looking to either come to or expand in South Carolina. The truth is, it's the people that make a workforce strong and attractive to business leaders. And every South Carolinian in every corner of the state, working in fields, farms, offices, warehouses, hospitals, and schools, and I could go on, make up our state's workforce. Here in South Carolina, we're very fortunate to have a highly skilled and well-trained workforce, which is what allows our state to thrive in so many industries. Many people may traditionally think of sectors like manufacturing and agribusiness, but modern technology and trends have new sectors on the rise across the state. For example, life sciences, advanced manufacturing for electric vehicles, and cybersecurity. As our state builds upon its list of key industries and continues to recruit companies using cutting-edge technology, it's important that our workforce grows and adapts too. I'll speak to these workforce preparations and upskilling opportunities in a moment. When we look at the big picture, relationship between business and our communities, our workforce bridges the gap between the two, playing a vital role. The fact is, if a state or community lacks a workforce, a company is less likely or entirely unlikely to bring their jobs to such a place. I try to imagine it in terms of supply and demand. If a company can quickly fill jobs with a qualified workforce, that's a sign that the company has a strong labor pool in that area. In turn, a company may be more likely to locate to or expand in areas with a strong labor pool, as they know their jobs may not stay unfilled for too long, thus increasing the supply of job opportunities in places where the demand, the workforce, is the greatest. On the other hand, if a company locates to a community and their jobs go unfilled for months, that could be a sign of a weak labor pool. If able-bodied individuals are capable and able to work, but willfully choose not to, it's hard to imagine that a company would want to stick around. Then imagine a company pulling out of a community and the impact that that has. We may have all seen or experienced something like this, and it's devastating. Without workers making money, fewer individuals and households have money to spend within their community, and this cripples our state's economy. In these situations, it's often, unfortunately, the small businesses, mom and pop shops, and Main Street diners that suffer without customers and ultimately may be forced to close. Another promising sign for our workforce and business recruitment is that our state keeps growing. South Carolina was recently ranked the sixth fastest growing state in the nation by Business Facilities Magazine. When states continue to grow and people continue to move to a state rather than away from it, this indicates to companies that a state has a high quality of life and that its employees may want to live where they work. As our state continues to grow and our communities evolve, it's important to have conversations that ensure everyone feels heard, included, and represented. This representation on a local level is important to maintain unity within a community. Community unrest will almost always boil over into the workplace with protests or strikes, shutting down production for days or weeks at a time. As a community, our ability to coexist and move forward together is important to local businesses. Now, more than ever, companies are prioritizing equality among staff at all levels, working to ensure that their employees inside their building are reflective of the community outside. Companies are seeing the importance of race relations and equality. And over the past year especially, we've seen companies prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion within the workforce. Whether it's educational training opportunities for employees or DEI strategic planning for long-term growth, companies are making strides on addressing these issues head on. And as we know, in a state with a history like South Carolina, this is particularly important. Additionally, many companies locating to South Carolina do so with the intention of giving back to the communities they join or partnering with other groups to launch programs like workforce or educational opportunities. But they can't do this on their own. I'll give you two quick examples. First, Volvo. When they announced they wanted to ensure that citizens within the local communities had opportunities to join their team. We knew that individuals within their footprint didn't have the appropriate skills needed to be successful to get into their specific training. So we created a short-term certificate that Volvo would accept in lieu of work experience. We then hosted community events at local schools at night and on weekends, highlighting pathways for individuals to follow if they were interested in working at Volvo, or even with companies supplying contract workers. Another example is Boeing. Pre-COVID, Boeing visited every county in South Carolina to expose citizens and leaders to the aerospace industry, hosting meetings at schools and in churches across the state. And just because I gave you examples of the biggest companies in our state, this isn't just limited to them. I encourage you to learn more about such programs offered by companies near you or companies and industries you're looking to join. When speaking to the importance of individuals who make up our workforce, it's hard to ignore that COVID-19 has placed a new emphasis on health and well-being. Companies are prioritizing employee health and wellness like never before, acknowledging that each and every person plays an important role in our state's workforce. COVID has also highlighted opportunities for change in a lot of ways. On the workforce side, some people pursue career changes either out of necessity or desire, considering factors like working conditions and office environments, mandatory training requirements, and more. As people decide to make career changes, I'd like you to know that the Department of Commerce, in partnership with other state agencies like the Technical College System, the Department of Employment and Workforce, Commission on Higher Education, and certainly the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission, are here to help. Through these entities and many additional local programs, citizens all over the state have access to free or reduced cost educational programs to learn new skills, to find a career that works best for them. The Department of Commerce and I work for you, not only through actively recruiting companies, which in turn help our communities grow, but also through workforce development and growth. Please know that we appreciate your feedback, ideas, and recommendations in areas that can help every corner of our workforce. And Commissioner Davis and all of your employees, thank you for what you are doing in the state to bring attention to diversity and equity and inclusion, and let us know what we can do to help. Thank you so much.
Elizabeth? Thank you. Elizabeth, thank you. Are you still there?
I am.
Oh, great. There was a question in the chat box for you.
Okay.
It says, what are you doing to attract and retain workers in South Carolina?
There is no cookie cutter answer for that. I think part of it is storytelling, right? We have to tell the story of the great jobs that we have and the opportunities. So through a variety of initiatives with the partners we talked about, there are several initiatives happening statewide, and I'm certainly happy to provide that information for you all offline.
Thank you, Elizabeth. There was another question, and this is one of our partners, Department of Education, but I think there's something with a program to retain teachers, and is it working? Do you know anything about that?
I am unfamiliar about that, but I do know that There are several partners who are working on teacher retention across the state, especially in our rural areas.
Right. And what about nurses? There was a question about that too, retaining nurses. You there?
Okay, sorry about that. I unmuted,
okay.
I muted myself accidentally.
That's okay.
Healthcare is one of our challenges in the state, and it's got multiple reasons for that. Partially is the class size and being able to have the number of instructors to get more masses through the programs. So we work very closely with the South Carolina Hospital Association to try to address that. And part of the reason with COVID is traveling nurses can make upwards to 6 figures, and a lot of our healthcare workers have chosen to do that to no fault of their own.
Okay, very good. And that's, it's really two important ingredients are necessary to attract businesses, and that is healthcare, good qualified workers, and quality education. And you've addressed those particular matters. And we just thank you so much for being with us here today for this program. You had some wonderful points that you shared with our audience, and we just ask for you to stay on, if you would, to address other questions at the end, if you don't mind.
I'm happy to.
Well, great. Well, listen, Elizabeth, we, certainly just appreciate all the hard work that you all do at the Department of Commerce. We are sister agencies, and it's just important to have that good relationship there because we're all working to improve the quality of life for all South Carolinians, and we're just grateful for what you all do. At this time, I'd like to share with you an overview of the Community Relations Program at the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission, also known by the acronym as of SHAC. Community relations, as we know it, originated in the 1960s as a direct result of the racial strife facing many communities around the United States. Interestingly, a diverse group of businesses, educational, and political leaders came together in South Carolina to ease the problems of court-ordered desegregation in schools, commerce, and public places across the Palmetto State. In Columbia, South Carolina, in 1962, restaurants were one of many places where Black people and white people could not gather together in one group because of their race. They could not eat together in a public setting. To combat this, a group of Columbia leaders, Black and white, secretly met at the University of South Carolina to share food and to talk. With everyone having a seat at the table, they discussed issues of racial divisions in their community and how to promote peace and goodwill. These leaders formed the Columbia Luncheon Club in 1963 and were instrumental in forming the Greater Columbia Community Relations Council. Other community relations councils also formed around the state, such as in Greenville County in 1967. State leaders, they saw the progress in Black businessmen and white businessmen, educators, and political leaders coming together in their local communities. They knew that if South Carolina was going to make progress economically, that it would have to make progress socially. To grow economically, it would have to show the rest of the nation and the world that Black and white people could live alongside one another, work with one another, and go to school with one another peacefully. Thus, the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission was formed in 1972. Since the passage of the South Carolina Human Affairs Law, many opportunities have developed, and manufacturers such as Michelin, BMW, Volvo, Mercedes, and Boeing have chosen South Carolina to locate. The list grows long for businesses that have expanded or moved to South Carolina. Our population has blossomed and people come to South Carolina seeking a good quality of life and opportunity for all people. The state is leading in areas of manufacturing and growth, yet issues of race discrimination in the halls of justice, healthcare, education, environment, and economics persist. The state is leading in areas of manufacturing and growth. But while much of the Human Affairs Commission law has dealt with public and private sector businesses ensuring equal job opportunities for all South Carolinians, the General Assembly established a section of the law to deal specifically with the creation of community relations councils. Listen carefully to what the South Carolina law states. Number one, the law allows the commission to help create or recognize advisory agencies and conciliation councils, local, regional, and statewide. The commission may empower these agencies and councils, listen to this, to study problems of discrimination in all specific fields of human affairs, or in specific instances of discrimination because of race, religion, color, sex, age, national origin, or disability, and also to foster through community effort, goodwill, cooperation, and conciliation among the groups and the elements of the population of this state. Number three, the law says these councils may make recommendations to SHAC. Number four, these councils must be composed of representative citizens. And last, these councils will promote goodwill and the betterment of human affairs. Community relations councils comprised of diverse people working together can affect positive change in our state as it relates to economic and social growth. I encourage each of you to go to our website on the CRC webpage at www.schac.sc.gov to download our Community and Race Relations Guide for more information regarding our roles at SHAC and how you can help affect change. Over the years, the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission has been successful in creating and helping to maintain community relations councils throughout the state. There have been as many as 29 councils at one time, but the numbers have fluctuated over the past 49 years. Issues such as local, state budget cuts, recessions, changes in society, and progress of social and economic improvements have impacted the number of community relations councils around South Carolina. Currently, there are 11 active CRCs in the state. And by the way, a community relations council may have different names, such as a human rights council, a human relations council, a human rights commission, or a community relations council. However, again, these councils, which exist around our great country, all serve a primary focus to promote respect and harmony among a diverse group of people. For example, let's look at Charlotte, North Carolina, just north of us. Over the years, this city has demonstrated high growth in business, economic development, and population growth. Their economic growth did not occur in a haphazard way. Civil rights leaders and business leaders acknowledged injustices in society. And in 1961, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Community Relations Committee formed to address issues of race relations. Throughout its 60-year existence, It has worked to promote fairness for all people and to remove barriers impeding the community from living in harmony. Now, like community relations councils in South Carolina, the Charlotte CRC created various committees to develop better community relations such as education and young leaders, intercultural relations, police, community relations, the commemoration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., fair housing, and they work to resolve disputes by providing mediation and conciliation services. They also host meetings dealing with racial and social disparities through town hall meetings and work to promote equitable outcomes for all people. In South Carolina, much like the example of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Community Relations Council, there are also success stories. For example, the Greenville County Community Relations Council works to resolve housing discrimination complaints. The Anderson County Community Relations Council, in partnership with county schools, presents awards to students in each school who have contributed to improving relations among diverse groups. The Myrtle Beach Council is currently collaborating with the city to develop an equal enjoyment and privileges to public accommodations policy. The Greater Columbia Community Relations Council sponsors a luncheon club and a hot topics forum to foster discussions among diverse people in local, state, and national topics that impact our society. The Rock Hill Community Relations Council initiates cooperative opportunities with businesses, community leaders, and members to increase greater awareness of the principles of diversity, racial harmony, social justice, and nonviolence in the community. They are developing a strategic plan to rebrand and to align with the suggested roles of the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission's Community and Race Relations Guide. And the Lancaster County Community Relations Council, they're addressing issues involving youth, as well as improving language access for limited English-speaking individuals who are visiting local medical facilities. Community relations councils throughout the United States have the same goal: to bring diverse populations of people together to promote harmony, respect, and goodwill to prevent and eliminate discrimination in our society. So how did these community councils come into being? Again, I refer you to the Community and Race Relations Guide at our website, which is, again, www.schehac.sc.gov. One of the most unique aspects of a community relations council in South Carolina is that the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission serves in an advisory capacity. Now, notice those words. We serve only in an advisory capacity. There are certain qualities that make a CRC successful, and we enter into a memorandum of agreement with each CRC that is utilizing best practices. Now, the South Carolina Human Affairs law provides that the commission may, number one, may assist in the formation of a council and state, recognize an existing council, and number two, the Human Affairs Commission can provide guidance, recommendations, and resources to a council. Notice that the law does not give the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission authority over any council. Again, it's the local community relations council that decides the issues and how they are planning to work things out within their community. Now, most successful existing councils share the following characteristics. And I would encourage you again to listen to these closely because they're very important. Number one, strong local government support. Each successful council must have strong local government support. Number two, a local government employee is assigned to serve as a liaison to the council. Number three, local governments provide a facility for the meetings. Number 4, local governments provide funding or other support. Number 5, local government is conscientious about ensuring that community and human relation council membership is diverse. That's very important. Number 6, the council, accountable to the mission of bringing people together, focuses on addressing community and racial issues that undermine goodwill and the well-being of human affairs in the community and state. Now, at the beginning of this meeting, I stated that the Commissioner, Janie Davis, has prioritized a new vision for community relations in South Carolina. And that new vision involves creating community relations service areas in South Carolina by following the South Carolina Emergency Management Division's 6 service areas. And you can see those 6 service areas there on your screen. The South Carolina Emergency Management Division works to plan and recover communities from catastrophes and emergencies by going in before the problem and building relationships with local county and city emergency coordinators and partners who are ready to respond when called upon to do so. So the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission has recently hired community relations consultants to go into communities to build relationships with county and municipal officials, with stakeholders and business leaders and government leaders. We seek to build relationships with local Chamber of Commerce leaders and businesses and church leaders, educators, and law enforcement and other community-based groups. Our goal is to have a Human Affairs Commission consultant in each of the 6 regional service areas, for every county to have 1 or more community relations councils to address community and racial issues before issues escalate to needing emergency or law enforcement personnel on the ground. The South Carolina Emergency Management Division has 3 levels of operation. Level 3 is normal operations. Level 2, enhanced level of awareness alert. And level 1 is imminent loss of life and property. The South Carolina Human Affairs Commission will apply these same levels when it comes to race relations, working to always maintain the normal operational level. Now, when you have concerns in your area, don't wait until things get out of hand or out of control. Call us for assistance. At the Human Affairs Commission, you can call the following people for help. First of all is Robert Snipes. Robert is our new Director of Community Relations, a retired Lieutenant Colonel with the United States Army. He has a master's degree in public administration and business and organizational security management. Robert brings a vast experience to community relations from all over the world and is committed to promoting equity, inclusion, and justice for all people in his home state of South Carolina. Assisting Robert are 2 individuals recently hired to work at the as community relations consultants for communities in South Carolina. First, I would like to introduce Ayanna Crawford. As a previous member of the Rock Hill Community Relations Council, she has a passion for promoting social justice throughout South Carolina. Her pleasant personality, her strong community relations skills, and ability to relate well to others will serve you and your communities well. Ms. Danielle Lindley previously worked in our EEO Compliance Division and is well versed in anti-discrimination laws enforced by the Commission. She brings a wealth of knowledge to this new position and will capably assist you in building healthy community race relations. We now want to turn to our focus for the remainder of this meeting to the focus of race relations. Community relations councils have been dealing with race relations for almost 60 years. So why have race relations not improved to the point where it is no longer an issue? Well, for a variety of reasons. First, in most instances, the issue of race and racism is historically baked or is institutionalized from slavery through the Jim Crow era, even to today. Institutionalized racism impacts every aspect of our lives, regardless of your race, where you were born, your address, your neighborhood, your education, employment, wealth, health, and the list goes on. These legacies still impact our educational system, healthcare system, economics, law enforcement, the justice system, the environment, and wealth, as events of the 2020 reveal to us in very stark ways. Secondly, we as a society have failed to recognize the warning signs of racism and have lacked the willpower to confront it. While we have made strides in opportunity for all, we have a long way to go to improve race relations. The murder of George Floyd and the resulting protests demonstrated an obvious need for further work. As it's often said, we cannot put the wine back in the bottle or the spilled milk back into the carton. The George Floyd killing was more than many people could bear, regardless of one's race. People were appalled. We can no longer look the other way. We have to confront racism now. Thirdly, talking about race and the issues surrounding race are difficult. It's hard work. This undertaking must be done with forethought, and it must be done with planning. When you read the South Carolina Human Affairs Law and the mandates addressing community relations, it's as if Governor John West and members of the General Assembly knew that we would have to continuously strive to address problems of race relations and human affairs. Their concept of community relations guides us to keep the conversation going. It's unfortunate that we are no further along with these conversations, but now is the time and we need your help. A recent editorial in the state newspaper that involved an issue in a low country school asked students and faculty and staff how students and faculty and staff could address issues of racism. Ultimately, the editorial board said, talk about racism now. This is our challenge as a state. If we're going to move beyond hate crimes, such as the shootings of unarmed people and the Mother Emanuel 9 murders in Charleston, if we're going to move beyond the riots, the protests and demonstrations that happened in our state after the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020, then we must focus on race relations and have open and honest conversations about removing this baked-in systemic structured racism and any other ism that causes people to be treated differently. Many communities in our state are having challenging discussions about race, and they're working towards resolution of this issue in race. For example, in Greenville, community and business leaders recently formed the Greenville County Racial Equity and Economic Mobility Commission. Now, notice the focus on the words economic mobility, and the title of their work to create racial equity in South Carolina. They are tackling issues of race through the following committees that they have set up. Number one, income and wealth, criminal justice. Number three, the education and workforce development. Number four, health and wellness. And finally, community-wide learning. Following the June riots of 2020, another South Carolina community took a similar approach to discussing race, equity, and inclusion in their community through the local government, and this was through the City of Charleston. The City Council voted to create the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation. The commission focused on the following: the creation of measurable outcomes, the promotion of greater accountability and coordination of community-wide efforts to achieve racial equity, and to eliminate institutionalized racism in the City of Charleston. So as you can see, from the upstate to the low country, we have two different entities working through the issue of race differently, but in ways that their local business and community leaders have chosen to address the issue of race. Today, Ms. Amber Johnson, Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation Manager for the City of Charleston, will discuss the City of Charleston's response to the issue of race. Ms. Johnson is a native of Charleston, and she's a graduate of Hampton University in Virginia. She received her Juris Doctorate from Florida A&M University. And prior to her role with the City of Charleston that she's currently in, she has served as a staff attorney for South Carolina Legal Services and previously served in various legal positions in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She is motivated by her passion for service and commitment to serving her community. And now I present to you Ms. Amber Johnson.
Good morning. Thank you all for allowing me to share our story this morning. Can I have the next slide? It's a great pleasure to be before you today to talk about the work that we've been doing in Charleston. Charleston's not a stranger to discussions about racial equity and advancing racial equity within the city. In recent times, the City of Charleston has supported civil rights and social justice. Examples include the city's public accommodations ordinance providing equal enjoyment and privileges to the public, the City of Charleston's Fair Housing Practices Ordinance making discrimination in housing illegal, and partnering with the Charleston County School District and education-focused organizations and programs to improve the quality of education in our schools, and supporting efforts of institutions and churches, including the congregation and community of the Mother Emanuel AME Church following the tragedy of June 2015. Grab the next slide. On June 19th, 2018, Mayor John Tegelenburg and City Council passed a resolution known as the Apology for Slavery and Jim Crow. The purpose of the resolution is to apologize for the City of Charleston's role in the regulation, supporting, and fostering the institution of slavery within its boundaries, and the past wrongs inflicted on African Americans here and elsewhere. The resolution is also an expression of gratitude for the significant contributions made to our community by talented and skilled African Americans that are reflected in the agriculture, architecture, artisanship, arts, and cuisine of the city. Part of that apology included the creation of my position, and I've been in this role since 2019. And the next slide. In 2018, the College of Charleston's Avery Research Center, in partnership with its Race and Social Justice Initiative, created a report called The State of Racial Disparities in Charleston County, between the years of 2000 and 2015. This report used a racial equity lens for examining the racial disparities and used a racial equity framework for addressing and removing systemic barriers within the county. Now, the next slide. On June 9th, 2020, Mayor John Teichelberg and City Council voted to create the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation. This committee was given 90 days to come up with a plan to provide recommendations on how to advance racial equity within the city of Charleston. That commission consisted of 6 council members, 7 community members, and those 7 community members led 7 subcommittees. Using that Avery's disparities report that we just discussed, they were able to divide that work amongst 7 subcommittees. And those subcommittees include criminal justice, economic empowerment, health disparities and environmental justice, history and culture, housing and mobility, internal review, youth and education. Each of those subcommittees were staffed with city employees. Those employees helped to provide administrative support for each of those subcommittees, and they were also able to provide them with institutional knowledge of what work was already being done in the city and what limitations and barriers existed to the work that they were trying to do and the recommendations that they were trying to create. The next slide. So based on our 90-day timeline, we started to solicit volunteers in July and August, and we conducted our first meeting in September of 2020. It took us almost the 90 days to develop our structure and to find our people to assist us with this work. So all in total, it took us over a year to come up with this plan, to get our people together and to meet with our community organizations. Since September of 2020, the subcommittee chairs conducted 68 individual subcommittee meetings, and our whole commission met 15 times. We were able to provide training for our commission members through our partnership with the College of Charleston. We were able to partner with them to provide 3 sessions for our commissioners so that they could obtain a shared language and to help them create a foundation for the work that they needed to move forward with. We were also able to obtain a membership with the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, which is a network of government providing peer support to operationalize racial equity. And it was through that organization that we were able to find our formatting for our final report that I provided a link to in this slide, and then I can share that link with you all later on as well. So coming together, bringing all these people together, we were able to come up with a final report that was presented to council in August of 2021. That report was met with some tension. We asked our council to receive the report, and we also asked them to create a permanent commission on equity, inclusion, and racial conciliation. Both of those requests were denied by council, but our mayor accepted the report and he has distributed the recommendations, which I think we were able to come up with 125 recommendations. And those recommendations have been distributed to the standing committees of council and to our department heads. And we are continuing to move forward with the work despite the opposition from city council. Can I have the next slide? So what's next for us is to continue to have those conversations within internally and to have our department heads continue to move forward with the work that they started through their staff members that were a part of this work. We're working with the council members that oppose the creation of a permanent commission, and we're drafting an ordinance that will meet both of our needs and moving forward with that effort. Our department heads will be trained on racial equity, and those sessions are planned to happen at the beginning of the year. And then we've also pulled together a racial core equity team, which is a team of staff members that will start to be trained on racial equity and have discussions about what it looks like to embed that work into the work that they do every day. So despite the opposition that we received from council, we're continuing to move forward with this work. We understand that it's going to take more than one person. It's going to take our community, all of our staff, our mayor, our department heads to move this work forward, and we're prepared for the challenge that lies ahead. So thank you for your time. The next slide has my contact information. If there's any questions or there's any way that the City of Charleston can be of assistance to any of you that are embarking upon this work, we look forward to assisting you in those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. It is hard and difficult work, isn't it? So if you'll stay on,
Absolutely.
it really is. So if you'll stay on with us, if you have any questions for Amber, you can place those into the chat box, and we'll be willing to, we'll hopefully answer some of those questions. We are constrained with time, but we would like to take some questions if you have some for her. And so we'll take those now. If we don't get to all of the questions, we will certainly send out an email to everyone with the question and a response that we'll have for that particular question. So any questions? I think they're coming to us. Just a moment. Also, if Elizabeth Kovacs, if you're still on, then after we get through talking to the questions, we'll go back to you, to present what you were going to state from the Department of Commerce. And we certainly appreciate your patience. And again, apologize to everyone for those technical difficulties right there.
Thank you, Deputy Director King.
Oh, you're
I'll stand
welcome.
by.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions that we have?
Just gonna ask a question.
Yes.
Yes, I had a question. I think it's for Amber. Just wondering what the opposition was from the Charleston City or County Council regarding you all's proposed act plan.
Thank you for your question. We received opposition to the final report. The final report contained recommendations for reparations. It talked about looking at alternative curriculum for Charleston County schools, which would entail critical race theory and 1619 projects. Our criminal justice committee also had a recommendation about examining the police budget. And then the narrative associated with that was that the commission wanted to defund the police. So that created some opposition, and it made the report more politicized than we had anticipated based on the national discussion regarding those topics. So that's a lot of what the opposition was surrounding regarding the final report.
Thank you, Amber. And just a reminder, that, it's each community, handles these matters separately and in their own individual way. And again, this is how the Charleston community and their council and mayor and the committee decided to, again, come together to address the issue of racism. So it's going to be different for every community. Question number 2 here is, can you share with us, Amber, how you got into the DEI work?
Absolutely. I guess as stated earlier, when I moved back to Charleston, I worked for South Carolina Legal Services. Part of my work there towards the end was working with the Shriver Institute. They have a cohort that talked about what racial equity looked like in legal services. And as a part of our advocacy, that's kind of where I started my work. And then this position became open through the legal department of the city. So I came in as a city attorney, recently moved to the executive department. So now I report directly to the mayor, when before I reported to our corporation council.
Very good. Thank you. Another question, Amber, what was the makeup of the group working on the report, such as the roles in the community?
Roles in the community. So for us, it was important for us to pull those members of the community that aren't normally tapped to be on these types of committees and commissions. We were able to pull in the community director from a local hospital to serve on our healthcare committee. We were able to pull a local professor from the Citadel for our history and culture subcommittee. So people from the community who are actively engaged in this work already. We wanted them to have subject matter expertise when it came to the specific committees, but also understand the role that systemic racism played in those specific areas.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent point to bring in experts on your various committees that you all have formulated there to address the issue of racism. We have another question. Is the takeaway from this is that every community has to determine its priorities? That's why diversity is critical.
You absolutely have to determine what's important for your community. You have to really reach into your community and ask that question. What are your needs and how can we help you? How can we better serve you? I think a lot of times we go into communities and we want to tell them what they need instead of asking what they need. So I think that is the takeaway, is that we have to really start to have those conversations and figure out how we co-create instead of creating a plan for them.
Right. Another great point, and as I said earlier, the Human Affairs Commission, we act only in an advisory capacity. We would never go in and tell a community what the issues are, or what they need to address. Again, it's a local issue, and it's something that the local community has to confront on its own and work with the business leaders and church leaders, all types of leaders within the community, healthcare workers and educational workers. So thank you. So there's another question, Amber, that says, we are not Charleston and we don't have we don't have the same resources. How do we move forward?
So I guess despite the thought that there are a ton of resources, I think you just have to reach into your community and start to ask the question of what your community can do to help. We did this work without any funding, totally volunteers, led by volunteers. The people that were within our network, they volunteered their time and their services. So I think it doesn't take as much as you think. I think it takes a lot more of shaking hands and making friends and just asking those questions of like, what can you do to help?
That's a good, and there really are a lot of like maybe nonprofits, local entities, United Ways that are out there that really have similar concerns. And those are people I think that you could go to in your community to get this conversation going about race. There's another question here. What ways do you determine what is needed in your specific community? How do you make the determination? In other words, like for those committees that you all formed, how were those committees, how was it determined that those were the specific areas that you all would address?
Those specific areas were determined from the Avery's Disparities Report. Through their data, we were able to find that those were the areas of disparities within the county. And so that's how we decided, but I think it has to be a conversation with the community, community-led and focused to determine, if you don't have that type of report, to determine what the issues are. I think it's also important to look at what the data says, where the disparities lie within your city, your specific locality, to determine where you need to focus your efforts.
Absolutely. And again, that's where you need to get your community involved, to figure out what those specific issues are in your community, to address those particular problems. So we thank you very much, Amber. We hope you'll stay on the line. You know, as I said earlier, it's just very difficult work. It is hard work, as you have experienced. But ultimately, it's going to bring about some good things. Ultimately, it's going to bring about better relationships within the community. And Amber, we certainly appreciate your leadership and your hard work and your dedication. So thank you so much for all that you do for the city of Charleston and really for our state. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's hard work. And what I would like to do now is just to review with you the rollout that we're working on at the Human Affairs Commission. And as I talk about the rollout strategy, if you do have any questions about this, please type that into the chat box. Working initially with our current community and human relations councils, the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission will select a council to coordinate a community meeting. We will have one of our new community relation consultants that I presented to you this morning, either Ms. Ayanna Crawford or Ms. Danielle Lindley at those meetings. And at this meeting, the community relations consultants will share with the community the following. The services, number one, the services that the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission provides in the areas of employment and housing compliance. Number two, the resources that the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission has to share, such as staff providing training to businesses, public and private sector employees on how to prevent and eliminate discrimination. Also, the diversity, equity, and inclusion training that we can provide to businesses, and the importance for communities to have good, open dialogue related to race relations and other protected class groups that the community feels needs to be addressed. At these community meetings, we will also have one of our employment intake officers to talk about employment or housing complaint, that process of filing a complaint, and to answer any questions. That same intake officer may return to the community within a 14-day period to meet with individuals who wish to access the Human Affairs Commission's complaint services. And our goal is to be in all of our state's 46 counties, to visit all of the 46 counties. Once we have visited each county that has a community or human relations council, we will then coordinate visits to the counties who do not have an active CRC. And we'll focus on setting up a community meeting at a county library or some other public entity setting within the county. Now we'll take questions regarding the rollout from the chat room. As you're thinking about questions, please note that if we do not have an answer for you, again, we will get back to you a response. I would like to say, while you're thinking of some questions, while you're taking time to send those questions, I'd like to announce that the first Community Relations Council to host a community relations meeting with the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission is the City of Rock Hill Community Relations Council. And it will be held on Tuesday, November the 16th. We would like to thank Rock Hill for volunteering to be the first council to accept this invitation. And that meeting will begin at 6:30 in City Hall Chambers. So we hope that you'll be able to, for folks in the Rock Hill area, be able to attend. Any questions? There was a question earlier, does the SHAC work along with the state and local NAACP? And well, we do. We work with any entity, the NAACP or whomever, that will assist to maintain harmony and to communicate. You know, we're going to work with all groups to ensure that all opinion and voices are heard. That's schools, businesses, the healthcare, you know, 501c3 organizations, etc. Lots of nonprofits. So church groups. We're willing to listen and work with everyone that, is wanting to promote goodwill, peace, and harmony in their community to address these issues of race. Any other questions? All right, well, let's see, I think we may have one here. Let's hold on just a moment. Again, we just appreciate everybody being on here today. It's been a pleasure to share with you the information for our rollout program and about community relations and the importance of having a council in your area. That question is coming to me just shortly. All right. Question about, can you share information on the DEI training that SHAC offers? And we offer that training. It's approximately 2-hour training, but we'll get back to you on specifics as it relates to that. It is good training, and we looking forward to bringing that into your community. We would ask for you. Of course, anyone can call our agency or go to our website, but you're welcome to call our agency and ask for the Director of Technical Services and Training, Ms. Stephanie Freese, about that particular matter involving DEI training. So improving race relations is such an essential task. Fortunately, since the time the Human Affairs Commission was founded in 1972, public and private sector organizations have also opened up dialogue regarding ways to improve race relations and to entice economic development. I'd like to conclude today's virtual meeting with a quote from a participant of the Riley Institute at Furman University. The Riley Institute helps leaders to seek ways to affect positive social change in South Carolina. Jaretta Postlewaite, superintendent of the Charleston County School District, states the following, quote, "Our school district has some of the state's very best schools and some of the state's lowest performing schools, just a few miles apart, but widely separated by deep-rooted geographical, historical, and socioeconomic factors. But we all share one future. Closing the divide, leveling the field is both a moral and economic development imperative," end of quote. So look at that quote carefully on your screen. How true these words are, not just for Charleston County, but for every county in South Carolina. We are here today. You are here today as a leader in your community to ensure that there is a way to move forward in South Carolina to overcome this great divide caused by historical and socioeconomic factors. We cannot, as a state, hide from the fact that part of this great divide does deal with the issue of race. COVID-19 revealed to us why not addressing this racial divide puts our businesses, our families, and everyone at risk. All of us can do something to bring our state together, to bring people together, to talk about race, to do something to improve race relations. It's the moral thing to do, and it will benefit the state in its pursuit of economic development to improve the quality of life for all South Carolinians. On behalf of Commissioner Davis, Commission board members, and the staff of the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission, we thank you for your presence today, and we encourage all of you to embrace respectful dialogue and good community relations. Thank you again, and we are adjourned.